Who's actually going to get the most out of a desktop CNC router like the 4540 Plus, and who would be better off putting their money into a laser cutter or a simple hand drill? If you're on the fence because you've seen a few DIY engraving machine videos that make it look like a plug-and-play miracle, you're not alone. The question isn't just does it work, but does it fit my workflow without turning my garage into a workshop nightmare? And, of course, is it worth the price for a regular hobbyist who only does a few projects a month? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's start with the basics of the category. A CNC router for wood, PCB, and PVC sits between a hobby-level laser cutter and a full-size industrial mill. It promises precision thanks to a ball screw-driven guide rail, and the 4540 Plus adds a 20W laser head for quick marking. The promise is a one-stop shop. You can carve a name into a wooden keychain, cut a PCB outline, and burn a logo onto acrylic all from the same machine. That flexibility is attractive, but it also introduces trade-offs you have to weigh before you hit buy. First, who should seriously consider this machine? If you already own a decent desktop laser cutter and you're looking to add depth cutting capability, the 4540 Plus is a logical upgrade. It shines for anyone who works with thicker materials that a laser can't cut. Think 3mm plywood for a small wooden enclosure or 5mm acrylic for a light fixture. The ball screw guide rail gives you the repeatability needed for making multiple identical parts, so small batch production of custom brackets, signage, or hobby robot components becomes far less painful. People who already run GRBL compatible software, like Universal Code Sender or Lightburn, will find the control interface familiar, which cuts down the learning curve dramatically. On the flip side, if you're a pure hobbyist who mostly does light engraving on leather or simple 2D laser markings, you'll probably be better off with a dedicated laser that has a higher wattage and a more refined airflow system. The router part of the 4540 Plus adds weight, noise, and the need for a sturdy workbench. If your workspace is a cramped desk, you'll end up with vibration that can ruin delicate cuts on thin PCB traces. Also, if you're looking for a machine that can run unattended for long periods, this model isn't really built for that. Its no offline claim means you need a constant connection to the host computer, so a power outage or a sudden Wi-Fi glitch can halt a job halfway through, and there's no built-in resume feature. Now let's talk about practical strengths that actually matter once the box is open. The first thing you notice is the rigid aluminum frame paired with the ball screw drive. In real-world use, that combination reduces backlash significantly. When I tested a 5mm cut on a piece of Baltic birch, the edge was clean enough that I only needed a light sanding to get a smooth finish. For PCB milling, the same rigidity helped keep the copper traces from wandering, which is crucial when you're trying to avoid short circuits. The 20W laser isn't a beast, but it's sufficient for quick etching on acrylic or for marking wood without burning through. Because the laser and router share the same gantry, you can switch between them with a simple tool change, no need to recalibrate the whole system. The software side is another win. The machine ships with a GRBL compatible controller that plugs straight into the USB port of any PC. If you've ever used a cheap Chinese CNC kit, you know the frustration of cryptic error codes. Here, the firmware is fairly clean. It reports position errors in plain text and lets you jog the axis manually, which is a lifesaver when you're aligning a new workpiece. The included control panel also has an emergency stop button that cuts power instantly, a small safety feature that's often missing on lower-priced units. But there are weaknesses you can't ignore. First, the no offline statement translates into a reliance on a stable computer connection throughout the job. If your laptop goes to sleep, the machine stops and you have to manually restart the process. That can be a pain for longer cuts, like engraving a full-size wooden sign that might take an hour or more. Second, the dust extraction system is minimal. The router produces a lot of fine wood shavings, and without an external vacuum, those particles settle on the rails and can cause a slight increase in friction over time. You'll need to set up a separate dust collector or be prepared to clean the guide rails frequently. Third, the machine's advertised engraving area feels generous on paper, but the usable space shrinks once you account for the laser head and the need to keep the tool holder clear of the workpiece edges. In practice, you'll find that you can't place a piece right up against the front rail without risking a collision. Let's walk through a typical day for someone who actually owns a 4540 Plus. Morning, you pull out.